Hello fans, welcome to Puncher TV. Here we are doing an exclusive interview with Mr. Winslow Coach Burkett. Good afternoon, Mr. Winslow Burkett. How are you doing?
Yeah, good afternoon. Thank you, Brother Dottin and Puncher TV for this interview.
All right, Mr. Coach, just tell us, the listening fans, something about yourself.
My name is Winslow Burkett. I'm a Roadtennis coach, and I was doing this here now for nearly 12 years, basically coaching. All facets, men, women, juniors, boys, girls.
All right, give us a background of your early childhood, what things that you're...
But basically, most people know me from playing football and cricket. I was the captain of Kevin Wireless football team. I was the captain of softball team in my area. So basically, they were my two basic fundamental sports back in the day.
All right, as a boy, did you play any road tennis?
Yes, that's part of our childhood. For some reflection, they say that the area that I came from, road tennis started there, and that was in the New Orleans, St. Michael, where national coach Keith Griffith, as well as the mighty Gabby, they used to play in that area in New Orleans. A place called the Woods, Forces Woods, if my memory serves me.
Oh, that's very nice. Were you any good at road tennis as a boy growing up?
As a boy, I would say everybody tried a little thing, because back in the days, we didn't really have much Barber Green. We used to have to, if anybody can remember this, the rocking engine, it was just tar and sand, and the rocking engine was, we call it back in the day, just used to roll the road, and we would get some sticks and some rocks and get a fur ball and hit the ball over the net, and we call that road tennis in my time. So I can say at this point, road tennis have really come a long, long way. We had some problems with the traffic back in the day, whereby the drivers used to break up the net, the police around you from playing road tennis in the road. So this sport has a lot of culture.
Right, as you grew older, as an adult, you moved away from road tennis and you were involved in other sports?
Yes, as I said, I played for Empire Sports Club, football. Then I lived there and went and played for Barbados, and then they changed the name to Kevin Wireless. So the road tennis used to play company road tennis and representing Barbados in LGC games back in the day.
Give us an idea of your occupation. What you do for a living?
I was a telephone technician for a number of years at Kevin Wireless. So we had industrial games. So we was always, the company was always involved in sports. One of our workers, national player Winslow represented Barbados in Burkett. So he used to work with me at Kevin Wireless as well.
All right, let's get back to the road tennis. For some reason, Burkett, you appear on the scene just out of the blue, and and you were involved in road tennis. You just came out of, I would say, obscurity, and you immerse yourself directly into road tennis.
Yes, Brother Dottin. I moved into the area of Bush Hall, and I was somewhat fascinated about the game road tennis. Not that I can play, but the sort of response and the crowds and the sportsmanship, the camaraderie with the players and things, and it was somewhat attractive. And a couple of times I went and have what we say a peek into the Barbados facility, and whereby we would see other people playing. So the guys invited me to come and play, and that's how it really started. I can tell you, when I first started, everybody used to beat me. All the ladies used to beat me. So that's where I was grounded, basically in road tennis at Bush Hall.
My recollection of you in terms of road tennis, to my mind, you start at a very high level. You start organizing. You and Donald Grisettes, you were involved in the dungeon tournament. You tried to revive it. Just give us a little take on that.
Well, as coming from a background with Kevin Wireless, and I was the captain, I used to have to organize the football, players, the gear, washing the gear, drawing the field. So when I see an opportunity, so we decided to hold a little tournament among ourselves, so just to get the sportsmanship arrive Because we keep playing one another at night, and it was a lot of fun. In fact, they said, let me play an amateur tournament for the beginners, and I was in that facility to play, but I realized there wasn't nobody to organize this type tournament, so I put up my hand, and the history is there for everyone to see.
Right. Was that tournament a success?
Well, I can't say that it's a success. That's the first tournament at Bush Hall for a long time. And you must also say after that, Roadtennis then came on board. We then had all the brand of standards of Roadtennis coming in after that first tournament at Bush Hall.
You know, after the that Dungeon Roadtennis tournament that you were involved in, at that stage, the Barbados Roadtennis Association was kind of dormant, and there was an interim committee that was put in place. You were part of that. Give us a little take on that as well.
Yes, as you're correct. You're really going deep here, Brother Dottie. Yes, the Barbados Roadtennis Association at the time, it was going through some uncertainty and due to the fact members, and we trained to recruit members and things, and then we had to go to the Sports Council, and it was said to us that we had to set up a committee to basically do the fundamentals, have a constitution, playing rules, so that when we carry the sport to a different level, everybody will be on one page pertaining to the rules and the constitution of the Barbados Roadtennis Association. So I was chosen as a floor member.
Can you recall who were the members on this committee?
Off of my head, I would say Mr. Cutting, who was passed away, Mr. Forth Garner, myself, you, Mr. Dotting, and Mr. Edwards, to name a few that was on that committee as the steering committee back then. Anyone else? There was a number of people, but some of them, for some reason, there were about 8 of us, but only about 6 of us really turned up at meetings.
What was the main role of this interim committee? What was their main purpose?
The main purpose was to look at rules, to make sure that we come up with rules for the game. Not to say there weren't rules, but to make sure the rules were enforced, that we have the right net, we had the right ball, the services that we can play on, standard of scoring, basically an overview of the constitution at the time to make sure that it was a standard that we can put it in somebody's hand and say this is the constitution for the Barbados Roadtennis Association. So we were basically the steering committee under the guidance of the Barbados or the National Sports Council at the time.
Okay, let's move on. You were involved in, at that time the Professional Roadtennis Association started to hold some very large tournaments. You were involved with Mr. Antoine Daniel. You were his coach. At this time there was a lot at stake. How you got involved in that coaching stint at that time with Antoine Daniel?
Antoine Daniel, anybody can say, I call him the Richards of road tennis, basically. The same Bashal, he's a Bashal guy. I had a lot of history about him. I have never met him before, but I have heard about him. I can remember Antoine Daniel winning the schoolboy back in the day and the A class in one day at Banks Brewery. And I can remember Sir West Hall giving out prizes, and I saw this youngster went up. Mr. Lance Bino was the organizer. He has passed away, and he was giving out the trophies and stuff. And I could fairly remember Mr. Antoine Daniel going up to take his prize as the junior champ, and he came down. And when they asked for in those days, the A class winner, the same Antoine Daniel went back up. And so that's all say, youngster, you just came back up here. And then Mr. Bueno said, sir, he's the winner of the junior as well as the A class. So being a Bashal man, Mr. Antoine Daniel saw me at night and told me, youngster, because you just call everybody youngster, he said, come, these fellas up here don't want to play me. I'm going to give you 15 points, and that's where our relationship started. So me and he used to play up there for the night, and so I can get much points with him. So he gave me 50 points, and that's where our friendship began. And I, as a coach, then from the football, transferred to the road tennis, and then we started to play as a team, as a coach. But I must not say that I'm the only coach at the time, but Mr. Pa Roach, Professor Roach, I like to call him. was in the background due to his work commitments. He can get to a lot of the practice sessions, so he would basically tell me what to do, and I would report back to him.
Or you think during that stint when you were coaching Antoine or you were behind Antoine, you think that was the birth of your coaching career?
Yes, it was more than the birth, because some of the names the guys called me when it was probably joined down Antoine Face, and they called me all sorts of names I can't really go over this interview, but you know where I'm coming from. Yes, it really taught me a lot. I saw it as an avenue for me to experiment and see if I can go into this thing as a coach, and that's where it basically take off. And by Antoine winning that $10,000 prize, it really made me more confident of my coaching skills, to be honest.
Well, I think that you gained some success by being involved with Antoine Daniel. I think you were picked up by the Professional Roadtennis Association. Tell us about that.
Yes.
After that.
Yes, Mr. Dale Clark, must give a big shout out to him. He said, Mr. Burkett, I can see that you already have this roadtennis heart, and I would like you to come over and really assist me with. He was a very far thinking. He looked and said, Burkett, we can carry this tennis to certain all over the world and other places, I like to say. He was a dreamer, and he had a lot of thinking, and I said to myself, this is an opportunity for me to go on board and as a professional. He's trying to bring the road tennis, bring more professionality to the sport.
So you were the head coach down at Deacons. Deacons had an academy.
Yes, his role was for me is to make sure that when we have tournaments, that the standard of tennis being played, the standard of tennis. You win? You want, you like? Yeah. Whereby he wanted the standard of the players in his tournament. We have a high standard, so that when anybody saw the game being played, we would say it looked like a professional. So he had 6 or 7 guys invited and asked me to coach them. We did drills, we played road tennis. So it was basically physical, mental, doing interviews like this here, so that when people go in front of the mic, that being questioned by the reporters, that they look very professional. And that's whereby I was in the academy to do that as well.
Right, and this academy also borrowed a team for the Village Camp tournament.
Yes. Yes, and that was the birth of the Village Camp. So whereby a camp will be determined by the area you live in. Like you can say Rubis, as we had a camp, a number of planes, Belfield, Bush Hall. You had the monastery, Barbados Monastery. They had a team. So it was another way of bringing the group of players from one part of the island, mostly St. Mike can say. We had some teams from Christchurch as well, so that you can compete for a trophy and some money as well.
But tell me something. Something went wrong with that camp. What went wrong with the camp, Mr. Burkett?
Which camp?
The Deacons camp. Somehow it seemed to fizzle out.
Yes. There was some issues pertaining to because as a coach, as you can look around here, I like to see, the space, we had some issues with the space at the time. We wanted 3 or 4 more courts down at Deacons, so that we can, when I finished coaching someone, I could go to the next. With the one court, it was a lot of issues with it, and so we had to move. I had to move to come Rubis, where we have, if you look around, we have about 6 courts. And so it's more time people can play. You don't have to be waiting on somebody to come off the court. And you know, sometimes people will be playing and don't let it come off.
All right, well, your coaching skills, despite the time you spent at Deacons Academy wasn't that long, your coaching skills were still being searched after you were called out by the Rubis team. You were seeked out by the Rubis Sports Club, and you had a stint down there. Tell us about that coaching stint at Rubis.
When I first came at Rubis, I approached a number of the players down here, management as well, and expressed my view to do some camp, do some coaching, and recognize it as a camp as well. I came after they won their first tournament, and they said to themselves that they wanted a coach on board so that the players could have some drills and see the camaraderie of the different players and bringing the Rubens family a little closer. So that's where I get into Rubens now.
You were very involved with the Blunt family. Give us a background on or some information on that coaching thing. You actually were the head coach for the Blunt.
Yes, I was the head coach for the Blunt family pertaining. It was a family affair. The mom and their two children. I was the coach for all three. The girl as well as the boy and the mom. And as you can check your history, all of you became champs underneath.
That's very good. Let's go back to the Professional Road Tennis Association. Your service was not only seek locally here in Barbados, they were also being requested overseas. You had a stint there in St. Vincent. Tell us about that stint.
That stint in St. Vincent, that was about for 3 years. Then again, Mr. Dale Clark, a visionary again, he said, Burkett, we need to carry this sport further, and we're going to test the waters in St. Vincent. He has some family ties. I think his dad is over there. Venom as well. He's from over there as well. So it will be a good starting ground because you'll be, you're comfortable because you have family. Both Venom and Mr. Clark have family in St. Vincent, and they took me over there as a coach. And the way how the Vincentians appreciated the sport of road tennis, it was somewhat amazing to see people that have never played road tennis in their life and gravitated to the sport, especially the guys in the country. They are really gravitated to the sport, and it was a joy to coach them for at least 3 years down here, consistently. And we did that around 9 mornings. That was basically around Christmas, so that was a good avenue for us to go down there because that's where they do most of their activities for the 9 mornings around Christmas.
All right, during this thing, you had a good run as a coach involved in these different organizations and so on. But what were you doing to qualify yourself or certify yourself as a coach? You just can't just say, well, I want to be a coach. There's certain fundamentals, there's certain techniques, there's certain training that you have to go through. How were you educating yourself as a road tennis coach in Barbados?
Well, at the time, there wasn't no facility pertaining to being a road tennis coach. I knew a lot of friends of mine, some coaches. I got some manuals from them about coaching. The manuals basically were like in volleyball, table tennis, badminton, mostly racket sports. I didn't get much from lawn tennis, but I watched a lot of videos from lawn tennis and put it together for my own benefit. But I must say, within the last year, the government youth affairs department, they offered a course, not basically in road tennis, but a fundamental basic course, and I was able to attend that course to get myself all qualified. But basically before that, I did a lot of reading on my own and listening to people like Shabir on the most outstanding road tennis courses in Barbados as well. He gave me some tips, and so as you say, I was learning as I go on the ground.
Right. That coaching thing that was done by the
Youth
Affairs and the Ministry of Sport, that came on time because shortly after that there was an invitation to Dubai, and your services were also seek not only locally, regionally, but internationally. One of the richest piece of real estate in the world, Dubai. How do you get on that tour, Mr. Burkett?
Well, as you said, the amount of things that you have listed just now pertaining to me being coaching. I must also say before we get to Dubai that I did a lot of coaching in schools. I did a lot of volunteer work as a give back to my, like in the audience, Westbury School. I went to St. Martin's, I went to St. Joseph. I went all over Barbados coaching road tennis in the schools. And And I can tell you that that program also have a lot of schools to compete for the primary school competition as well. Most of the time it was held here at Rubis. It was a part of that in the coaching aspect of certain schools as well. Well, the Dubai situation was somewhat a surprise. Mr. Dale Clark again, a visionary, said, Burkett, we are going to Dubai. I said, what? At first I didn't believe it, to be honest. He told me, man, Burkett, we're going to Dubai. And that's where it happens. And he recommended me to the ministry. At this point, I would like to thank the government of Barbados for giving us, the team, opportunity to go to Dubai, and especially the Minister of Sport at the time, Mr. What's his name again? Dwight Salinger, excuse me, and the Prime Minister of Barbados for that foresight, whereby we had 192 countries to expose road tennis to, and everybody that saw the game gravitate to it. I must tell you, to go there to see people that never played the sports from all over the world, and you as a Bajan showing the skills of how the game should play. It was mere words can't explain it. And then to turn around to have a tournament at the end of the training stint. Have two people coming to Barbados, the two winners, a gentleman and a lady, for a vacation as a trip. And I could imagine the smiles that you saw on their face pertaining to this sport we call road tennis. It was just revolutionizing the world of sport, because I have never seen nothing like it. It was really mere words, Mr. Daddy. You had to be down there to see it.
Yeah, I guess that's an opportunity of a lifetime to go. Just the mere fact going to Dubai and that very marvelous and beautiful place, yes, with all that lovely infrastructure and so on.
Yes.
But let's backtrack a bit. 2019 was not a good year because that's when the COVID-19 pandemic hit the world. How that affect you as a coach in your plans and so on? How you had to navigate through this very deadly virus in terms of road tennis coaching in Barbados?
Well, to be honest, we had to be very careful because most of the sports was banned, especially the contact sports at the time. So the government basically said that you can, with the protocols, that you can train, but you can't train with a lot of people. You had to wear your mask, you had to wash your hands. So it was very difficult for me. Most of the time I had to tell a lot of my students, hit the ball on the wall, probably hit a couple of balls on the wall, skipping, maintain your condition, watch your deck, stuff like that. And doing a lot of interviews on the phone, and very rarely we had an opportunity to play road tennis. And because of the fear and you don't know how you would catch it, it was very, very stressful, to be honest. So,
you know, something phenomenal is happening right now, despite we have the COVID and so on. This young man, Jason Paris, he have created something unusual. He created some excitement. He's calling out all the A-class players. What is your view on that? You know, it's getting a lot of traction on social media. People overseas or so are requesting to see these videos. You know, Tito Ellis he's involved in it as well. Give us your take on that at this stage right now.
Well, I am saying that the Bajans are somewhat people that can take things, right? Bajans are somewhat, we can, as you say, we can take something and make it into something. And
you're trying to say that Bajans are very creative?
Creative,
yeah, okay.
In the sense that we can do certain things, you know. That's in our genes. What Mr. Paris is doing is really putting a lot of pressure on certain aspects of road tennis, because we have association. We have to go ahead to play road tennis, and the association is not holding any tournaments at this point, especially for the membership. They're doing a very good job pertaining to the junior aspect of it, but the senior aspect of it, there are no tournaments happening. And I see this with Mr. Paris calling out, keeping the momentum of road tennis up and running, because due to the fact of the protocols, a lot of people can't come out and watch the sport, and what they are doing on social media, causing interest, calling out people, and people from all over the world. I've gotten calls from some parts of Dubai they want to see it, but they got in on video, because social media, the thing, everybody live and direct and spontaneous. It's nothing that you organize for. You may call up me, you may call you next, Dottie. So it's keeping the vibe, the vibe, and the what we would call the attack and the verbal and the acting.
You can't trust.
You can't trust the sport.
Yes.
Whereby other people have no fault of them that they can't play any sports at this time.
I don't want to knock the Barbados Roadtennis Association, but this activity that's going on right now, I'm not seeing the president nor the vice president coming out to see this thing, And last night, we saw Kenmore Biner, the noted, awarded journalist. He came out and, he did a little report on Pipey coming up against David Taylor.
This is a very touchy area, because we know that the COVID environment, and we have some high numbers pertaining to this new variant of the virus, COVID-19. So some people may be a little hesitant to come forward to, you can't blame them, but I feel going forward, the president and the vice president will show their face to, what you would call, to make sure that
to endorse it or
and make sure the protocols are being enforced and stuff like that. But I hoping that the president himself will come out and have a couple of words pertaining to this rivalry, because that is what is happening for road tennis at this point, this rivalry contest.
All right. What are your future plans in terms of coaching and so on? For yourself personally, how, in terms of developing yourself to...
Well, before we go any further, Darren, we have a little null, and I think the focus is to get young people involved in sports. I think what is needed at this point is a road show, whereby we get a couple of A-class players, a couple of ladies, and go throughout the country and exhibit and showcase road tennis. It has been done in St. Andrew for sure, a place called St. Simon's, whereby the persons up there organize a little tournament among themselves. Even before a real tournament, they want to see a Venom, they want to see Mr. Nurse, Shaquille Nurse, they want to see Antoine Daniel. I think that is what is required now to get road tennis out in the districts. There's basically two areas in Barbados. You can count them on your hand that play competitive road tennis. I think we need to go to St. Lucie, St. Joseph, St. George, St. Thomas, road shows, getting the youngsters, the young girls to play road tennis. And I think we focus for that. And you can see that when we have an island-wide, we see the best of the best coming through to represent the consistency. Because you can't say Paris now, but there's a consistency contest supposed to be happening in the near future. So this will be a good chance. And the training, we will do some courses, and we will have somebody in the Pacific area to coach that consistency so that they can improve their game.
Very good idea, Mr. Burkett.
The ladies tennis needs to be improved. We need to have ladies playing road tennis, and little girls as well.
Right. I think the government attempted to do something like that with the consistency competition, right? But it wasn't really well organized. Not for on the government. I think it's because the time, and with the COVID environment and so on. But the government, we got to compliment the government for having it coming off.
Very exciting. It was very thing. But hopefully this year, God's willing, we will see a better and a bigger, because people will know about it and because the government right now is painting courts all over Barbados, so that will also help to have the trust for the road tennis going forward.
All right, Mr. Burkett, I know you're not a medical person, you're not a doctor and so on, but we seeing the medical professionals are saying COVID is here to stay. It's looking like in order to be involved in sporting activities, you're going to have to be vaccinated. You know me, the government is, I don't think the government is interested in making it mandatory, but the way how things are going, if you want to get involved in sports, if you want to continue in sports, that seems to be the direction, you know me, for activities, organized activities.
Yes. Yeah, that may be, they have started it already. This area that we are talking about is a very complex. Some people for it, some people against it. But testing, going forward, once we have tournaments, we must be tested, because as I said, this variant is not leaving us in a short time. It's going to be here. So once we follow the protocols, for the tournament, the management of the tournament, and we have the COVID unit, and they tell us to do certain things, I think we should obey that, so that the sport can move on, so you don't have basically no problems going forward.
All right, Mr. Burkett, at this stage, is anything that you would like to say pertaining to road tennis, to the future of the sport?
What I would like to say, basically, the Sports Council have been doing a very good job. If the primary road tennis schools, but I think they need a secondary school competition. There's interests out there. I think they need to have some more interest in the secondary schools system, whereby they can play, because a lot of the children has come back to me and said, sir, I gone to this school and they don't play road tennis. And while they're coming through the primary system, they want to elevate themselves to the secondary system, whereby they want to continue playing road tennis. Another thing I would like to see is that we have road tennis as a subject matter, whereby youngsters, children at secondary level can do an SBA for road tennis.
The road tennis become a part of the curriculum?
Yes, and so that you can call it. A lot of children, again, I spoke to teachers and they were asked, teachers were asked, the children were asked, the pupils were asked, sir, can we do road tennis? And they would say there's nothing, no book, no handbook to do road tennis. So that's something that I'm looking to do. Any help, if anybody out there that can help, so we can have a handbook, so that a teacher, a coach, a PE teacher can say, well, we're going to do road tennis, these are the rules, these are the basic things, that the other sports that are done in sports pertaining to the SBA aspect of games. That's my major thing at this moment, to get the SBA system for road tennis and have it as a subject matter in schools, as well as in primary, as well in secondary.
You know, Burkett, I think you have a mammoth task on your hand. They're the coaches in Barbados, road tennis coaches, that is.